Over 500 renowned scientists publicly reject Darwin's theory of evolution, Baxter Dimitri, Your Newswire reports. Actually, this is was also reprinted in 2006. It's not just now that they've come out with this. More than 500 of the world's top scientists have come forward to raise their concerns about Charles Darwin's outdated theory of evolution, jointly claiming that the 19th century scientist is unscientific and does not adequately explain life and human creation. According to the scientists, many of whom are tenured at the world's leading universities, Darwin's theory of evolution should no longer be taught in schools to impressionable students as though it is scientific fact. The theory of evolution is pushed on the populace as fact and settled science, but as Professor Colin Reeves from the Department of Mathematical Sciences at Coventry University of the UK explains, the theory of evolution is not properly scientific and is simply inadequate at explaining the origin of life. Quote, Darwinism was an interesting idea in the 19th century when hand-waving explanations gave a plausible, if not properly scientific, framework into which we could fit biological facts. However, what we have learned since the days of Darwin throws doubt on nature's selection ability to create complex biological systems, and we still have little more than hand-waving as an argument in its favor, end quote. He's one of 500 scientists in several fields that came together a few years to create a scientific dissent from Darwinism. Chris Williams, PhD, from Ohio State University, who also contributed to the groundbreaking report, explains that Darwin's theory of evolution is all speculation and little, if no fact, and as such must be removed from high school syllabuses. As a biochemist and software developer who works in genetic and metabolic screening, I'm continually amazed by the incredible complexity of life. For example, each of us has a vast computer program of 6 billion DNA bases in every cell that guided our development from a fertilized egg, specifies how to make more than 200 tissue types, and ties all this together in numerous highly functional organ systems. Few people outside of genetics or biochemistry realize that evolutionists still can provide no substantive details at all about the origin of life, and particularly the origin of genetic information in the first self-replicating organism. What genes did it require, or did it even have genes? How much DNA and RNA did it have? Or did it even have nucleic acids? How did huge information-rich molecules arise before natural selection? Actually, how did the genetic code linking nucleic acids to amino acid sequence originate? Clearly, the origin of life, the foundation of evolution, is still virtually all speculation and little, if no, fact. Collective evolution reports we're dealing with a controversial topic here, one that has some scientists reprimanded for going against it in some cases. This theory is really being pushed hard on the scientific community, which could be the reason why these scientists chose to voice their concern in such a matter. It's being taught in some cases in schools as fact. Although the list is an old one, it goes to show that this thought is out there, and this type of thinking is clearly legitimate and exists for several reasons. There are multiple theories out there which we should be discussing. Take, for example, Francis Crick, a Nobel Prize-winning co-discoverer of the DNA double helix. As Greg Braden points out, Crick believed that life's building blocks have to be the result of something more than random mutations, a quirk of nature. Crick risked his reputation as a scientist by publicly stating, quote, an honest man, armed with all the knowledge available to us now, could only state that in some sense the origin of life appears at the moment to be almost a miracle, end quote. In the scientific world, this statement is the equivalent of heresy, suggesting that something more than chance evolution led to our existence. Crick is one of the many scientists who believe that intelligent intervention had something to do with it, and also postulated an extraterrestrial hypothesis. Greg Braden makes another great point. He says, the feeling that there's something more to our story is not just a recent phenomenon. Archaeological discoveries show that almost universally, from the ancient Mayan Popol Vuh and the indigenous traditions of the American desert Southwest to the roots of the world's major religions, ancient humans felt connected to more than just their immediate surroundings. They sensed that we have our roots in other worlds, some that we can't even see. And it was not long ago when Apollo 15 pilot Alfred Worden stated, "We are the aliens, but we think they're somebody else, but we're the ones who came from somewhere else, because somebody else had to survive, and they got in a little spacecraft, and they came here and they landed, and they started civilization here. That's what I believe. And if you don't believe me, go and get the books on the ancient Sumerians and see what they had to say about it. They'll tell you right up front." At the end of the day, we simply have to ask ourselves, why is it becoming more and more difficult to question things? Many people live in a state of fear and feel worried about how they will be perceived these days for taking a particular view, be it on human evolution, vaccines, whichever. As a chemist, the most fascinating issue for me revolves around the origin of life. Before life began, there was no biology, only chemistry. And chemistry is the same for all time. What works or not today worked or not back in the beginning. So our ideas about what happened on Earth prior to the emergence of life are eminently testable in the lab. And what we have seen thus far, when the reactions are left unguided as they would be in the natural world, is not much. Indeed, the decomposition reactions and competing reactions outdistance the synthetic reactions by far. It's only when an intelligent agent, such as a scientist or graduate student, intervenes and tweaks, quote-unquote, the reaction conditions just right, quote-unquote, do we see any progress at all. And even then, it's still quite limited and very far from what we need to get. Thus, it is the very chemistry that speaks of a need for something more than just time and chance, and whether that be simply a highly specified set of initial conditions, fine-tuning that is, or some form of continual guidance until life ultimately emerges, is still unknown. What we do know is the random chemical reactions are both woefully insufficient and are often working against the pathways needed to succeed. For these reasons, I have serious doubts about whether the current Darwinian paradigm will ever make additional progress in this area. This was written by Edward Peltzer, PhD, Oceanography, University of California, San Diego, the Scripps Institute, Associate Editor, Marine Chemistry. Mainstream education teaches us that 99% of DNA links is indicative of where we came from, but we share approximately 65% of our DNA with a banana. What does that mean? Does that mean that we've got roots from a banana? God forbid. Human beings aren't stupid, and this is why in 2014 a Gallup poll revealed that in the United States alone, almost half the population believe that there's something more to the origins of human existence than the two options that are constantly presented to the masses. They believe there is something more than Darwin's theory of evolution. This tells us that human intuition is pointing us towards something more, and some of the greatest scientific minds agree. It's also very important to mention the fact that multiple discoveries continue to be left off the record. The discovery of giant skeletons is an excellent example. We have written some heavily sourced articles displaying a fraction of the evidence that's out there today, and you can access them. The point is, there are still many questions left unanswered and still many discussions to be had on this. This is by Baxter Dimitri on your Newswire.